Choice for Two's newest video is out, The Procedure, and I am super fired up to talk to Laura Klassen, creative mind and producer behind the episode. That's today's episode. Stay tuned. Hi folks, my name is Cam. I am the host of the Pro-Life Guys podcast, an initiative of CCBR which is dedicated to equipping you with the tools that you need to have compassionate and compelling conversations about abortion so together we can change minds, save lives, and transform our culture. Thanks a ton for tuning in. I am incredibly excited for this week's episode. For anyone who hasn't already watched the video The Choice for Two partnered with Lure.tv on called The Procedure, I've got it in the show notes. Stop right now and watch the video. It is profound. It is powerful. It is absolutely incredibly well done and produced. It is heart-wrenching. It is intense. As we're going to get into in my recording with Laura, I think that it fills an important niche in the educational realm of the pro-life movement, in so much as the fact that it shares a very personal, very true story of one person's journey in the medical field as it kind of hits a crossroad with abortion. I think it's profound. I think the imagery is beautiful and horrifying and heart-wrenching. And I think this is what we need more of in today's society, that we need more on social media. We need more sharing with not only our friends and family, but members of our church community and within everybody within our sphere of influence. It's so vital that we have this content. And so without further ado, I'm just going to dive right into the conversation that I was blessed to have with Laura Klassen, Executive Director of Choice for Two and producer, creative mind, and incredible pro-lifer who put together The Procedure with Lure.tv. All right, Laura, thanks so much for taking the time to join me on the Pro-Life Guys podcast. How are you doing?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing really well, thanks. And you?
Good. I am doing great. It's been a bit of a whirlwind here with intern recruitment and that kind of thing, but I'm sure that this last week has been a bit of a wild ride for you as well with the launch of the new video, The Procedure. Has it kind of unfolded the way that you were anticipating, or tell us about how this last week has gone?
Yeah, it's gone really well. It's doing great. We decided to launch it differently than we've launched other videos. So where we just gave it to some larger organizations and people for them to upload themselves. And that's been working really well because cumulatively we have a lot of views on it, which is great.
Gotcha. Anyone who hasn't seen The Procedure yet, that you produced on behalf of Choice for Two together with Lure.tv, it'll be in the show notes. But I want to dive into it with you and kind of talk about the background behind it and the narrative component, because one of the things that I love so much, of the many things that I love so much about Choice for Two, is how you've combined kind of the human element, the narrative component, with revealing truth about abortion. And so I'm curious, give us a little bit of background on how this episode one, The Procedure, kind of came about with regards to the story. And spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't watched it, the story of a fella who I'm assuming that's a fella because it's narrated by a fella, but the ultrasound tech who is going into to do ultrasound, what ends up being for an abortion. How did this come up? Did you come across this story on your own? Is this something that trickled up through Choice for Two? What is the background behind The Procedure?
Right. So yeah, it's a true story. And the person sent it to me because I made a post online maybe over a year ago asking, if you are a medical professional and you have encountered or witnessed an abortion, would you be willing to share your story with me? So I did that and I got quite a number of responses. Actually, it was really interesting. And this one just really stuck out, just the way that he was describing everything in so much detail. And so I just started chatting with him back and forth and asking more questions. At the same time, Lure.tv had approached me saying, hey, do you want to create content for our platform? And so they were encouraging me to do something a bit longer. You know, our videos have all been around a minute or so 2 minutes, really, the animations for social media. So this was something I wasn't even really considering. So then when they asked me, and at the same time I was talking with this man, I just thought this would be the perfect first episode. And so that's how all that happened.
Gotcha. Love it. And I am excited to talk towards the end of the episode about potentially future episodes, but I'm curious if would you say that on your behalf, the behalf of Choice for Two, is there an intentionality behind the kind of personal narrative? I feel like so many of the videos that you guys have produced, whether it's this one, whether it's the child sacrifice, or even just the "So You're Pregnant" video, have found not a niche because it's such a wide area, but between the very by the numbers, by the facts, I suppose, Dr. Anthony Levantino videos, the videos of abortion victim photography that get shared around, I feel like
Yeah.
the videos that you've produced have been such a cool corner that have combined a lot of the facts, a lot of the compelling evidence with the human narrative. And I'm curious about the creative process behind that, if that's really intentional, if that's just kind of the way that your brain works, or what is the
Right.
rationale behind that?
That's just the way my brain works. But now that I look at it, I can see that the pro-choice movement, they're really good at telling stories, right? Like whenever they're having their arguments, it's all, oh, what about the 10-year-old who's raped and gets pregnant? And they have these stories. Whereas our side is more factual. And like we have the stats, we have the statistics, and which is good. We need that. But I feel like maybe that's what it is, that now I'm like, well, no, we can tell stories too, and they are true stories, but we can just frame it within that narrative. Yeah.
Absolutely. And to point on a few others, I was crushing through all of the videos again this week that Choice for Two has put out, the unempowered videos of post-abortive moms who were pressured into abortions, that kind of thing. And I mean, it hits me incredibly different than so many. I mean, I've seen abortion videos 100 times over. We play them during every one of our presentations that we give at CCBR. And yet, even going through the comments of the procedure, and I recognize a lot of names in the comments section, and how many people are posting that it hit them differently. Have you been kind of getting the same kind of feedback? I'm sure that you're getting lots of feedback from trolls as well, but what is the kind of general feedback been, and is it kind of along the lines of what you had hoped?
Yeah, it is. It's been that. It's people who have even been in the movement fighting against abortion for years saying, I didn't think that anything would upset me really. Like I thought I'd seen it all, and then this just hit differently. So that's very encouraging because that's what we were trying to do. We were trying to do something that would really impact people. And we've had messages from people saying, I am no longer pro choice. I didn't realize that this is what happened in a second trimester abortion. So that's very encouraging. And we've also received confirmation that a little boy's life has been spared because of this story, which is the best. And
Praise
I'm
God for
hoping,
that.
yeah, and I'm hoping that, many more as well will hopefully be impacted.
Love it. Love it. I hope so as well. I know a ton of people have been sharing around. I will encourage everybody in the audience to not only check out the video, but to share it far and wide, because the more people who see this, the more people it's going to impact. We might think, you know what, this is so profound. I don't want to stir the boat. I don't want to rock the boat. I don't want to stir the pot, as it were. I'm sure that we could have a very long conversation about that. But just while I'm thinking about that, do you have an elevator pitch for folks who might say like, oh my goodness, this hit me so profoundly, but I don't know if I'm quite ready to share this on my own social media, or how far and wide. What's your elevator pitch to get somebody to take that very natural, very
Yeah.
important step?
Well, I understand that. I feel like I'm so far removed from it at this point,
Yeah.
but that's just the path that I've been on. But come on. I mean, no pushback or feedback that you can get comes near to what happened to that baby girl, right? Doesn't touch it. So have that in your mind and be brave and post this video. Look, you didn't make this video. You didn't talk to this man. You are not taking ownership of this video. You're sharing a video. Like, you can do it. And then when people, what are they going to say? The only thing that they can say to you is, no, this isn't true. Which then you can come back with the facts and be like, yes, it is. This is exactly how a second trimester abortion is done. So do it.
Exactly. There's very little to lose apart from Facebook friends and whatnot. And it's interesting because I'm sure that you have the exact same experience, but so many of the workshops and training events that we do at CCBR, we get questions of like, but how do conversations about abortion come up? Like, do you expect me to just launch into a conversation at the lunchroom table or at the dinner table? And it a little bit tongue in cheek, but generally my answer is yes. I do expect people to bring it up in those situations, that maybe not with the customer at the till per se, or when the dentist has the tools in your mouth.
Right, right.
But
Well,
there's a lot of opportunities to bring up this conversation, right?
well, especially on social media. This is what people do. They post random stuff out of nowhere, right? They're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I really like this cat video I've seen." Boom, and you're not like expecting this cat video, but this is how it works. So it's a great opportunity to just bam put something like this out there. That's how social media works, right?
Absolutely, absolutely, and like you said, the facts are on our side, and whether
Yeah.
it's directing somebody towards the Dr. Anthony Levantino videos that you've got on the website at Choice for Two,
Mhm.
whether it's other information that is incredibly easily accessible, let's normalize the position that it's
Yes.
not okay to kill innocent humans to solve problems. Let's just put that out there and be
Oh,
like, put the
yes.
burden of proof on your Facebook audience, not on yourself, I guess, right?
That's the thing. I feel like people who are anti-abortion or pro-lifers, they're embarrassed to be that. That's how the culture has made them feel. But that's ridiculous. We're in the right. We are against the murder of babies, right? So exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, this is naturally radical. And one other thing that I'll say just on this before we move on into kind of a little bit more about the video, I guess everyone has an audience, right? Like you
Yes.
might think that the only people that follow you on social media or people in your church are they're all pro-life already. Nobody has ever experienced abortion. Nobody will ever contemplate abortion. But that's not the truth. That
No.
everyone has people in their lives that have abortions. Christians have abortions. Family members have abortions. People who are raised in pro-life homes, people who proclaim the name pro-life have
Yeah.
abortions for a variety of
Yeah.
reasons. And so don't let yourself fall into that trap of I don't need to share this because everyone I need is pro-life.
Absolutely. Because you're dead wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I have found people that I went to high school with and university and all sorts of areas. And this is such a freeing opportunity for so many people. Part of the follow-up that's been posted on the Lure.tv website is what do I do now? And I'm so thrilled that one of the main things, the first thing they have on there is seek forgiveness, find hope and healing through Christ after abortion. And I'm curious, have you maybe talk for a moment about that post-abortive healing and forgiveness component of Choice for Two? Because I think a lot of people are probably a little less familiar with that than they may be of whether it's the pink hair magical birth canal or
Mhm.
whether it's the pregnancy support and registries. Maybe talk a
Right.
little bit about the post-abortive forgiveness and healing component.
Yeah, sure. That is huge. There are so many women, and that's a big part of what we do. We have a post-abortive Choice for Two team member who kind of heads all of that up, and she's fantastic. And I realized over the years that the deep wound that a woman is left with after she aborts is just devastating. I had not understood that until actually my team member and I just a lot of talking, and I can see how it's really affecting people. And then I looked at the help that was available, and a lot of the help for post-abortive women is very much you were a victim. This was put on you. We're here to encourage and support you because this thing was done to you and you need to recover. But that is not helpful because if you're going to get forgiveness, you're going to get it from Jesus Christ, and you're going to do that by repenting, and that's the only way. So we've very much moved into that and supporting women that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's so important that ownership.
Yeah.
I feel like you and I probably get accused a ton, whether on street corners or even on social media in person presentations, of trying to shame and guilt post abortive moms and dads.
Right.
And my response is often like, I'm not trying to make them feel this. The fact that they feel it is natural because of their ownership of their responsibility. I had an interesting conversation with Josh Brom about how it's actually really offensive towards moms to say that you had no control over this decision, because that's basically labeling them as the pawns and chattel of people around them. And that's not to undermine the coercion that so many moms experience, but
Right.
I think it's so valuable, like you said, to we don't find forgiveness by justifying to God the minimal amount of our involvement in our sins,
Right.
but rather just acknowledging them straight up, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. the whole the two victims thing is a really big problem, and that it needs to be shifted for the benefit of women. And it's, I will say, there have been maybe two or three cases where the women we've talked to were actual victims. Like, we're talking someone who's working in this sex trade who was impregnated against her will and was literally held down on a table to have this abortion done. She is a victim. But for you to say, oh, I was really struggling with paying my rent. My boyfriend didn't want to have anything to do with me, and so I had no choice but to choose abortion. I understand that your circumstance was really hard. It was. That's terrible. That shouldn't have happened to you. But it was your choice. You walked into that clinic, you booked the appointment, you paid the money, you got on the table. So there has to be, there has to be that ownership in order to get actual repentance and to have that lifted from you.
Exactly. And that's something that I see, and it breaks my heart when I see it, of moms who have gone through some degree of post-abortive healing and whatnot, and yet they're still absolutely devastated. And I understand the fact, I'm not a counselor. I get that you don't just forgive and forget, so, or
Right.
receive forgiveness and forget entirely, that this is a journey that moms are on, dads are on through the rest of their
Yeah.
life. But
Yeah.
I feel like that probably speaks to the fact that moms go through, so many moms end up going to a handful, a dozen at times, healing retreats because they're still grappling. They haven't been empowered to take ownership of their own actions, and that they haven't actually received the fullness of Christ's forgiveness because
That's
they
right.
have withheld some of their own desire and culpability
Yeah.
for that forgiveness. Yeah.
Yeah.
So moving back a little bit towards this story, and I will talk in a couple minutes, I hope, about kind of the future of the Exposed series and whatnot. I'm. Is it fair to say that the Exposed series may involve a wide array of different topics and whatnot? But like you said, there's a ton of medical professionals who reached out to you, and I'm curious if you can share a little bit more about some of the stories that you may have received after that call to testimony and witness of who's gone through something. What were some of the other stories that stood out to you that didn't end up becoming episode one, but might still warrant to have the stories told, I suppose?
Yeah. Well, it was really interesting because there was a very common thread of people going to the washroom and throwing up immediately after.
Mm,
That was something that I read throughout a lot of them. And a lot of people quit their
yeah.
job. So they went and found the same job at another hospital, but just upfront said, I will never participate in this type of thing again. Um, there were quite a number of ultrasound technicians
Yeah.
who watched it. That story was very common. And then there were people who were nurses in the room who, were responsible for taking the remains of the child and who didn't watch it on ultrasound, but saw the pieces coming out onto the tray, who were very scarred by that. So really sad.
Yeah, just horrifying, and it's an experience that a lot of us at CCPR. I feel like every town that I go to give workshops, at the end of almost every presentation I give, I get pulled aside by somebody. I remember talking to a young woman, or actually a middle-aged woman in Saskatoon, who told me that
Yeah.
she was a janitor at
Oh,
um, one of the public hospitals there, and that
yeah.
she'd been a janitor for over 10 years, and that she got asked to clean up an operating room that she'd done a million times before. She'd seen a tremendous amount of blood and medical waste, but
Yeah.
she'd never seen a body of a child who'd been killed by abortion. And that exact response, she threw up. She got a transfer immediately, and it wasn't even as though obviously she was working at an abortion facility. And
Right.
I'm sure that it's a whole different kettle of fish to talk about the difference between this story and a story like Abby Johnson's or something like that. It's a whole different kettle of fish. But to
Yeah.
hear stories like that from a janitor, a friend of mine in Vancouver who was doing medical research until he found out that some of the cell lines that he was working on were derived from the HEK, human embryonic kidney lines, and quit his job and left that
Wow.
immediately. And I'm sure that there's similar stories that came through your inbox, and I hope even more
Yeah.
stories to come pouring through after this first
Mm.
episode.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
probably happened.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know how much you can tell. I don't know exactly what the process is, but is there an episode 2 in the works? Is there an entire
Yeah.
series? What does the future look like?
It's a series of 6. So this is one of 6. And the fetal cell lines that you just mentioned, we are planning to do one on, again, a story, the actual individuals that were harvested for those fetal cell lines. Where our second episode, which we're working on now, is on in vitro fertilization.
Gotcha.
Which opens a whole mess there. That one, I think people are already upset about that one, and they haven't even seen anything. And I think that is so widely, it's a procedure that's so widely accepted, even within the Christian community right now. Yeah. So,
yeah.
Yep. And then we are probably going to be doing one on the birth control pill. And
Perfect.
just how, yeah. And so those are the 4 I can talk about right now.
Okay.
The last 2, not. Yeah.
Gotcha. I'm super excited. I don't know if you guys have exact dates set out. Or are we looking at one a year? Are we looking at a couple per year? I'm sure there's lots of people who are interested in when they might anticipate an episode 2 come out.
Yeah, I don't have a date yet. The amount of work that goes into these is huge. And just because of the level of animation that we were working with. So we're working with this top level of animation, but we're working with like a very low budget,
Yeah.
so it works well. And so thankful for the people that are helping us. Like we have ex-Disney animators who did this last one, and who want to remain anonymous, which I totally get. So as soon as we have a date, as soon as production's a little farther down the line, I mean, I've already written the script for the IVF one. It's happening.
Beautiful. I'm super excited. I think that's such an important topic. I mean, all of the topics that you mentioned. I've been crushing through Stephanie Gray Connor's book
Okay.
on
Yep.
Conceived by Science, which is
Yep.
interesting. And like, obviously, I feel like everyone who deals with this is trying to find some degree of balance between I know people who were conceived through IVF,
Yep.
and how do you balance to like, no, I don't want you dead. I'm not trying to say
Of
that I
course
don't
not.
want you
Yeah.
to be alive, but
Right.
this is also an injustice that's perpetrated. And so I'm thrilled for that, really excited. And maybe that's a perfect segue into if people want to help out and hasten these efforts and whatnot, what needs to happen? I'm sure that you've got an incredible team already when it comes to budgets, when it comes to other contributors and whatnot. Are there ways that
Yeah.
people can get involved and help out?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we are fundraising for the remainder of the episodes, so we have links to that on our Choice for Two donate page. So thank you for that. Yep. And then what really helps is the promotion and spreading the videos. So, like I mentioned right at the start, the procedure, the first episode, which is out, we just want as many people to see it as possible. So we made this as a tool for anyone who is speaking out against abortion to use. So please share it on all your social media. If you want to use it in presentations, go ahead. If you want to use it in any way that brings the anti-abortion movement farther along, yes, please do.
Love it. I'm glad that you said that on air, especially because I am planning on using it tonight. Time of recording at
Okay, good.
I'm speaking at a Red Deer Pro-Life event tonight for their
Oh,
AGM,
wow.
and I'm absolutely
Okay.
planning on unrolling this. I'm sure many
Amazing.
of them have seen it, I hope, but yeah, spread it far and wide, folks.
Okay,
Make
great.
sure that people see this because it's such an important story and angle that needs to be shared about this.
Yes.
So. Cool beans. Laura, you're a champ. Thanks so much for everything that you do for the pro-life movement. I feel like you wear a million different hats and do them all so, so well. Thank you for your contributions and thank you for making this episode and opening more people's eyes from a different vantage point to the issue of abortion.
Yeah, and thank you for having me.
All right, folks. That's my conversation with Laura Klassen. I hope that you enjoyed it as much as I did. Laura is an absolute champ. She wears so many hats in the global pro-life, anti-abortion movement. She does a phenomenal job. I think that a lot of people kind of brand her inappropriately. I feel like she has gotten a lot of press and attention because of her usage of the word murder. Abortion murders a child. And I think that with that, a lot of people have gone a little bit too far in the extremity. There's definitely a conversation to be had around that. And yet anyone who watches this video or any of the other videos that they've done at Choice for Two realize that they're very, very sound. That not only are they compelling, not only beautifully done, but these aren't radical. This is a true story that a medical professional walked through, that has been put on, not display per se, but made available for you and I and everyone within our spheres of influence to process and to work through, because this needs to be shared. It needs to be shared. Abortion is the human rights violation of our time. We need to be doing stuff about it. Obviously, many of you are plugged into your local Right to Life groups. Many of you are connected with CCBR in varying capacities, staff, interns, volunteers, financial supporters, and we appreciate your involvement in every single one of those ways. And my goal, obviously, through the show is to help you further optimize and further leverage your skills, your time, your experience for the changing of minds, saving of lives, and transforming of culture. I think this video does a great job of it. It is profound. It is balanced. It is very, very important to share. I could keep saying the same synonyms over and over and over again. But without further ado, just share the video. Just share the video, get the conversation going, and use some of the conversation tools that we talk about on the show to help the conversations that you are having afterwards. And so that's it. If you want more content, go to prolifeguys.com. If you want to check out the video, go to youtube.com and search the Pro Life Guys podcast. And check on all of our other episodes. Thanks a ton for tuning in. I hope that you are doing well, and I hope that you are getting involved in every way that you can. Another quick shout out. PS, I suppose. The PS at the end of the video. I don't know if that's supposed to be something different. There is a whole lot of stuff happening in Michigan right now. Please send your prayers. Please send whatever support and help and aid you can. If you didn't check out my episodes with Trevor Polo or I want to say Kristen Day from Democrats for Life to learn about what's happening in Michigan right now, please do check them out. Michigan needs our prayers. Michigan needs our help for the protection of preborn children. So do that. Thanks a ton. Talk to you next week. God bless you abundantly wherever you're at, however many hours are left in your day.